Moving into our next discussion here on Morning Edition on this Thursday. Staying with the politics, staying with governance, but from a local government perspective, because the dust has settled on local government elections. All the rain would have helped in settling that dust as well. So now it's time for action. We're joined by a couple of regional corporation chairmen, corporations controlled now by the UNC, the United National Congress, to find out more about their plans for the next 3 years. We're joined by Alderman Raymond Cozier, chairman of the Mayaro Rio Claro Regional Corporation. He's been in politics since 1987, and we appreciate him taking the time joining us because he had to leave Mayaro at 4:30 this morning to join us, and so we really appreciate him taking the time to be with us. Also, Councillor Anil Juteram, chairman of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, who left Grande at 5 o'clock this morning to be with us this morning. So we really appreciate it, gentlemen, you being here. And if you're saying, wait, he's the one who talked about the issue, but you could vote twice. Yes, he's the man who brought up the issue that suddenly many people, even those who are being involved in the process, weren't aware that in local government elections, only if you're a business person, you could have a second vote, depending on where your business is located. But good morning, gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us. Could I ask you, Councillor Juteram, because there was a lot of focus on Grande, the PNM poured a lot of resources, a lot of campaigning in Grande, UNC won, but central government is PNM. Will you be able to fulfill your promises to the people of Grande, given the belief that there's always politics at play and the regional corporation will be starved of resources?
Good morning to you, Fazeer, and good morning to your viewership. What I believe in is speaking the truth. And we spoke the truth throughout the election, and during my term as a councillor, we let the population know exactly what were the challenges. We were stifled very much by central government, the Ministry of Finance, in terms of giving us what you call DP, money for development projects. Our first allocations, 2017, 2018, we had to actually go to the media 11.5 months into our first year to tell central government we have like roughly 2 weeks again and to give us that funding, give us that release to do the projects for the people of our region. So we have been selling the mantra, speaking the truth to the population, and while the central government was saying there were no money, no money, no money, and the population saw within 2 weeks of the local government election on the eve that money fell from the sky or a magic wand, and roads in PNM strongholds were being paved left, right, and center up to the Sunday night before election. Roads were being paved, and people said they had enough of that rhetoric, and it's time this administration stop fooling the population, and people are asking for truth and proper representation, and we did that.
But Councillor Juteram, and before I bring Alderman Cozier into the discussion, how do you move forward? Because will you have the resources to fulfill your promises? And will you be able to say, well, look, we are able to do this? Because people don't want to hear excuses. Yes. They don't want to hear, well, the PNM ain't giving me no money. As we had our discussion before we came on here, they will say, well, you didn't say that when you was coming to us. Why aren't you delivering? Well, how will you be able to deliver?
Well, Fazeer, I don't take no or the word can't in my dictionary. That doesn't exist. At my swearing-in ceremony in Sangre Grande, I had a chat with Madam PS, Ms. Destra Bascom, and I hinted to her the urgency of the corporation.
That's the PS in the local government ministry.
Yes, the urgency in terms of us having a conversation, because that corporation is on the verge of shutting down. We have not paid contractors for scavenging in the electoral area of Kumoto Manzalina and Toku Sangre Grande for 2 months. We have no money for short-term employment. We have no money to even pay a caretaker to look after the flagship recreation grounds that the corporation is vested interest in terms of looking after. So I'm awaiting an appointment to speak with her, with my CEO, and we will chart the way forward. I'm very confident of that.
Mr. Cozier, just give me your sense as to the situation as it is in your region, Mayaro, Rio Claro. Is it a similar situation? Tell me what challenges are being faced there.
Well, good morning first.
Good morning to you.
Morning to Trinidad and Tobago. Firstly, from the records of the previous chairman and council, they were they had a lot of shortfalls. Also, they had a lot of challenges in meeting wages and salaries. They had to do a lot of different environments and so to meet the fiscal budget. As at now, I don't know exactly what is the present situation. I know the allocation for this year was, I think, is 65 million. The normal budget should be around 85 million. So we have a shortfall right now of about $13 million, and that is as for allocation.
Yeah.
Now, allocation and release is a different situation.
Correct.
And they are...
because it could be allocated, but if it never released, it's like you never get the money.
Right. So we have a meeting today with the CEO and administrative staff to get a total update and a full understanding of the situation as it exists now.
And because, you know, we tend to look upon these communities as rural communities and different issues and so on, what would you identify, and issues that you might have brought up on the campaign trail leading up to that election on December the 2nd, what are the main issues, what are the main challenges in Mayaro, Rio Claro?
Well, there are a number of challenges in Mayaro, Rio Claro. One of the biggest challenges is unemployment. A lot of people are unemployed because, you know, added to this government's policy of closure and shutting down of major industries and sending home and firing, a lot of people are on the breadline. So, and then the shortfall in recurrent releases, where you would do short-term employment, you would do different areas that create some employment for people, is a challenge. So employment is a situation. In terms of Mayaro, over the years, all these miles of beach in Mayaro and lack of facilities, that has to be addressed. Sporting facilities, as I go all around, I see a lot of attention is to be given to sporting facilities to create this encouragement for young people to occupy the fields again, you know. So those are some of the challenges. You see people walking, they have to walk in mud to come out on the road.
But do you expect the conditions to improve? Because I think this is really what it comes down to. And it's kind of like the question I asked Councillor Juteram just a short while ago, as to the fact that central government is PNM. There's been a lot of talk about local government reform, which hasn't become a reality as yet. So therefore, you still remain almost entirely reliant on central government. Do you think, because of the nature of the politics, we have a general election coming up sometime later on in 2020, that your corporation will be starved of resources and will therefore not be able to do what you would like to do?
Well, I am very optimistic, right? However, as Mr. Pandey said, politics has a morality of its own. I don't subscribe to that, but the reality of life, that is a real statement. So I expect the PNM to starve UNC corporations. However, we got to be thinking out of the box. We have to come up with innovative ways. We are fortunate to be in a region that has a lot of agencies, multinational companies. My drive would be to identify all the issues, identify all the needs, and then identify all the projects that we need to address, and network. I would be networking with all those different agencies to get buy-in to all the different projects, and not that they ask for money, but to partner with projects to see how we advance and improve the conditions of our region.
Councillor Juteram, this issue of local government reform has been bandied about for a long time now. What is your view on that? Are you in favor of local government reform? Is it something that you would like to see happen? Because both parties, the PNM and the UNC, have been routinely accused of promising things like constitutional reform, like local government reform, but from the time you get in office, you're not interested in it. What is your view on that?
Well, to an extent, I share the view that local government reform would enhance the electoral area of, let's say, Sangre Grande and environs, in the sense that we would be responsible to an extent to collect taxes and at least certain basic amenities that we are shortchanged of by central government, we would be able to decide how and where we are putting the allocation based on the funding that we get from it. But I'm very cautious about leaving it in the hand of any politician to be in charge of that. I would rather see someone very neutral in terms of, let's say, the CEO of the corporation, because if you can never tell where there's money involved, there's always an avenue to work around that system. And we have to be very cautious about taxpayers' money.
Indeed, and as you mentioned that, we can't get away from the reality that the reason the UNC, which was the main party in the People's Partnership, lost the last general election was on the PNM campaigning of corruption against the UNC. So whether it is real or perceived, Councillor Juteram, there is that issue of corruption and good governance and accountability in relation to the UNC. What do you have to say to the general population and more specifically the people of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation when it comes to accountability in a UNC-controlled regional corporation?
Well, Fazeer, to start with, one of my first meetings that I'm going to have, I've already spoken to people from the Anti-Corruption Bureau and Transparency International. I would be bringing them into the corporation to speak to both administrative staff and the new members of council. That is one of the mandates I have to fulfill. We work tirelessly day and night, and there's nothing that, to my knowledge, that nobody has been charged as yet from the UNC in terms of any corruption. It's a propaganda made by the PNM, and it worked in their favor. But when you look at the fake oil issues and all the other things this government has gotten away with, you know, has much to be desired by people who claiming about corruption. And when you look at the reality, when one minister could get the state to acquire almost 3 of his personal properties, when one individual holding high government office.
But they will also say, Councillor Juteram, to be fair, nobody has been charged as yet. In the same way that you are saying no one from the UNC has been charged as yet. The argument is always that both of you are looking after each other, the PNM and the UNC, and nobody going to charge nobody because you all in the same game.
Yes, but practice what you preach. Practice what you preach. If you are holding a dough and you preach that to get into office, and it's the same thing you preach against that is happening.
And let's talk then about the realities on the ground. You say that contractors haven't been paid, there's no money, to work with. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do as far as getting things done on the ground for the people? How are you going to do it in the absence of that sort of funding?
Well, we have been networking with a lot of corporate people. For example, in the electoral area of Vega de Rupuch, we have written to licensed quarries and businessmen to buy hot mix for us, to donate blue chip stone to pave road and so on, because you have ministers telling you they cannot go into areas because it's an orphan road. But yet still, before the election, on the eve of election, orphan roads in PNM areas were being paved left, right, and center.
And on that point, Mr. Cozier, you talk about collaboration with the multinational corporations, the energy-based corporation, because the southeastern part of Trinidad still very much focused on energy and energy-based industries, and there are opportunities there. How difficult will that be to get them on board, to partner, to collaborate, to provide employment opportunities, to refurbish and rehabilitate sporting facilities, as you mentioned, to reinvigorate that community? How difficult is that going to be?
Well, everything has its challenges, right? The multinational companies over the years has always been involved in issues in the Mayaro district, contributing in many different ways. I don't think previously the corporation has tapped into that resources in a real meaningful way. And I think in this time now, it is more necessary. It is really more needed now is that we have that kind of conversation and see how we go forward. Because there is so much more to do with less. So we cannot sit by, as you rightly say, sit by and say, well, okay, we don't get money for this and we didn't get money for that. And there are other resources that we could network with to ensure to make sure it's happening. So going forward, that will be one of my top priority in having and establishing this relationship with all stakeholders in going forward.
Councillor Juteram, tell me how the relationship works in relation to the MPs, the members of parliament, because we know that there are different boundaries for regional corporations as against the main constituencies when it comes to a general election. But is there any sort of collaboration, any sort of working relationship with the MPs for the area?
Well, let me share that experience, right? The councillor for Vega de Repuch, now, but we have something called PDs, polling divisions, right? 2 of my PDs fall under Toko Sangre Grande, that's under the auspices of Honorable Glenda Jennings-Smith.
Yes.
8 falls under Ms. Christine Nawala Hosta, and that is in Kumoto Manzalina.
Right.
Let me use an example of the flooding that took place on the 18th of October 2018. People were marooned in those 2 PDs in Toko Sangre Grande, Vega de Repuch, right? That MP never called me as a councillor to say, well, councillor, what can we do? What can the security apparatus do to help the corporation, right? Absolutely not a phone call. You had the Prime Minister, you had the Minister of Works, you had Honorable Kazim Hussein, who I have a lot of respect for, but maybe he have to toe party lines. They came to Sangre Grande, took a picture in front of the Sangre Grande police station and drove off with the black Prados. Not one of them called and said, councillor, what can we do? This is a national disaster affecting PNM, affecting UNC. Let's come together, show the country that we are bigger than politics when disaster strikes our country. Nothing like that. Instead, you had the former chairman holding a caucus with us, right? The Sunday, the flood took place the Saturday, the Sunday morning, and he told us, Balize House is sending up releases. Right there, what? So I asked him, Mr. Chairman, so in other words, has the authorities collapsed or are they sleeping on the job? And he said, are you threatening this administration?
But is that going to change with the fact that the UNC now controls the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation? Because we understand the central government is and central government is PNM and so on. We'll see how that collaboration works, if it works at all. Are you anticipating a very difficult time? Because we've come out of a local government election, we're going into a general election. If what you are saying is true, based on the experience of the flooding of October 2018, and I'm going by your word,
yes,
based on what you said, that how will you even collaborate to be able to do anything in 2020?
I am prepared to use my maturity and respect, right, this chair that I'm holding. I'm yet to speak to the Honorable Minister of Local Government and our PS, Ms. Bascom. She has proven to be someone who likes the East, likes Sangre Grande. So I'm very optimistic in terms of our dialogue with the minister and the PS, because they have to understand people come first. It's not party and party symbols. I'm not here for that. I'm here to collaborate everyone to make sure that both PNM and UNC are comfortable in the region of Sangre Grande.
Alderman Cozier, it's a similar sort of situation for you because, as you mentioned, similar sorts of issues with employment, especially for young people and so on. Because we are in election mode essentially, that's why we had our guests from Tobago talking about their own issues as well. Are you prepared to work with what little you have? Are you prepared to not necessarily make water into wine? Wine to turn water into wine, yeah, but to do a lot with very little. Are you actually capable of doing that?
Well, you see, first, the history of the PNM, right, is before elections spend a lot of money. So all the time we didn't have no money.
Isn't that the history of the UNC too? Spend a lot of money. That's why Tobago gets brought up the issue. The UNC went into Tobago, throw a set of money to support the TOP. Next thing you know, it's 12-0.
12-0, right? But then, the PNM came with a rumor that frightened Tobagonians. They come and say, a boat of Indian Calcutta ship come in, right? And after they win, Indians taking over Tobago, and Tobagonians fell for that. TOP would have win seats.
Do you really think so?
Yeah. I really think TOP would have win some seats. I really think, because I was there in Tobago, and I was part of that whole move by TOP. It was really amazing and shocking the next day that TOP didn't win one seat, you know. So I really felt that TOP would have won some seat.
Okay.
Right?
But
going on, right? I
over.
expecting PNM to come and spend a certain money for this election. So the spending of the money in our constituency, we will be very happy for that, right? But that would not deter, or that would not contribute to the voter decision on who they're going to vote for. Because the whole 4 years, you have us suffering, right? Neglected, rejected. And now 1 year before election, you come to spend a certain money to make us feel that we're going to vote. The same thing with the local election. When you drove to Grandy, you would have sworn PNM taking over Grandy, because all the paraphernalia, everything in Grandy was PNM. But that is not the deciding factor to the voter. So we have an MP in Mayaro who is a UNC MP.
Rushton
Parry. We have an MP who is working with us. We are connected regularly. In everything that we have to do, the MP is coordinating. And sometimes you mightn't see him out there on the street, but he is behind the scenes, pulling all the knobs, pushing all the things that have the things happen. So we do have that problem in Grandy with division of the MP. But in terms of getting these things done, I too would not only be liaising with the multinational, I too intend to have an appointment with every minister, every PS, to fight for the uplifting and the betterment of Rio Claro.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. With the long journeys we've had to take this morning. We never take that for granted when you take the time to be with us here in the studio in downtown Port of Spain. And we'll wait to see how things go, how things unfold, because we are very much in election season, and we'll see how things transpire heading in towards 2020. Thank you very much once again for taking the time to be with us. 7:29 in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back right after this.